Welcome back to Ox Tools. I'm Tom. So today we got a little project for my wife's art studio. So she had a little bench vise up in her studio that she used for holding things to screw them together and various art-related things. Frankly, I don't know what she uses it for up there. But the vise was too small, so she gave it back to me. And I had a different vise that we got at a garage sale. It's actually a nice little vise that I took apart and kind of cleaned up and not a full refurbish, but mainly just a cleaning and a painting. It's actually a nice vise now. And so we're going to build a stand to put that on. And so my buddy Jason at Fireball Tool hooked me up with I was going to build a stand, but then I noticed that he had these, they're the legs for his fab tables, his super hot whammy fab tables. So he sells the legs separately, and they're actually pretty awesome for a vise stand in that they adjust in height, and they have flanges on them already and adjusting holes, and it's a whole bunch of work that's already done, and the price is a screaming deal. So let's check that out and see what we're going to do, and then we'll, I got a piece of plate that I want to put on the bottom that's a little different, and I'll explain why I'm doing all that stuff. So let's check it out. So here's the vise, and this came from a flea market, not a flea market, excuse me, a garage sale up here in the hills, and the story was it was on this guy's dad's workbench, or I don't know what, and it had been there for a really long time, and it was in pretty rough shape when we got it. I paid $5 for this, okay, and this is a reed, and I think it's a, I don't know, 3.5 inch or something. Yeah, 3.5 inch reed. Is there a number? I don't know, but it's got a 1908 patent number on it. It's pretty old. My Instagram Vice buddy, Tarmac, thought because of the patent numbers and stuff that this is, I think, 1915 or pre-1920. So it's a pretty old vise. And it's got, you know, some old styling cues, this meatball, and just, you know, some of the styling cues are kind of old-timey, right? Anyway, $5. Basically, I took it apart, cleaned it, bead blasted it, and repainted it this green, which is going to go really good with this red. And this came from Fireball Tool. My buddy Jason up there hooked me up with this. It's a leg for one of his fabrication tables, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So the last part of this equation here is the base plate. And so that's going to be the base plate, and there's a reason why. So normally, you know, with a stand like this, you would probably bolt it to the concrete, you know, put some red heads through there and go into the concrete and have a really super solid vise stand. But because my wife's art studio is kind of cramped, what I want to do is put it on a heavy base, and in particular on a round heavy base. And what this allows you to do is tip it up onto the corner, and you can actually roll it without having to pick it up. So you can move it around, kind of like moving a gas cylinder around. You know, it's too heavy to pick up, but you can tip it and roll it and move it wherever you need it in the shop. So anyway, that's the idea. So what we're going to do is, you know, like I said, it's a simple project, okay? But like all projects, it requires sequencing, right? So you got to find the plate, you got to have a vise, then you got to get the materials for the stand, and then you got to say, okay, what am I doing here? And you know, anyway, it takes a while to get it all together, right? So that's my excuse anyway. So. Okay, so let's get into the details now. So one of the things that really attracted me to this particular stand was it had an adjustable height. Okay, which is really nice. So when I was talking to Master Jason about this, I said, so the first question out of my mouth is, hey, with those adjustments and the fasteners and whatnot, I said, does that thing wiggle or what, right? And he says, no wiggle. And I went, oh, okay, cool. And I mean, from the website, you can't tell how these fasteners are set up. But when I got it, I looked at it, and it was immediately obvious that he is totally correct. And I'll show you why. And let me take one out. So if you look at how this is constructed here, these two holes, they're larger in diameter so that they fit the head, or the head of this special bolt, right? So what's actually happening here is it's not, with these kinds of designs, right, you have to have some clearance between the two members or else it won't slide, right? So what Jason and company did was they said, yeah, we understand this problem and we don't want our tables to wiggle around, right? Good idea, because to me, that would be like a huge negative if the table wiggled at this joint, right? So what they did was they counterbored this, right? So now what this fastener is doing is it's tightening this up, but it's pushing, the bolt's pulling that way. So what it does is it takes this inner tube and pulls it up hard against the internal wall on the opposite side, right? And then if you have two of them and you tighten them up securely, you're bomb-proof. Okay, so it's actually it's a great idea. Okay, it's an awesome idea, and it allows quite a bit of adjustment. You know what? I don't remember the numbers, what the minimum and the maximum height are, but it's a pretty good range. And so get this. Here's the best part. So he sells this whole thing, okay, for $180. So I don't even think I can buy 2 plates and 2 tubes for $180 from a local steel supplier, right? And it's put together, comes with fasteners, all the work's done, laser cut holes or whatever, and it's welded together and it's painted. Twist my arm, right? So this is going to be my new de facto Vise stand if I have to do another one, right? And obviously you got to pay for shipping and whatnot, but I don't know what the number is. But if you don't need it next day, it's probably not too bad. So anyway, that's our stand. It's already kind of set at the height that I want, although we may take it apart just to make it easier to work with here. But let's do the next stage here. Okay, so right now we have it with the small end up, which is probably how I would orient it if I was kind of using it for a stand like this. But what I discovered was that when I put this particular vise on here, this has a 3-bolt pattern on the swivel base. My holes are hanging off the plate. Now, lucky for me, Jason was thinking ahead, and what they did was they put a different size plate on the bottom. So let's flip it over. And this is great, when you have the opportunity to make something more useful, more universal, right? Go for it. So this plate's a little bit bigger. Okay. And guess what? We got plenty of room for our swivel base. Okay, so now, pro tip here. Okay, pro tip. So when you mount a vise like this on a stand or on a table or anywhere, it's really important, I think it's really important, that the surface of this jaw is clear of this face. And the reason why is when I want to put something long in there, that's what happens, right? So what we want is we want to be clear. Just snug that up like so. We want to be clear of that back jaw. Okay. All right. Well, I'll lay this out nicely. So now in this situation here, I got a teeny bit hanging over. I'm going to push it back just a little bit. Yeah, it's just the nature of the casting here. But that's okay. That's not going to bother anybody. Well, it bothers me a little bit, but I'm going to have to live with it. So anyway, I'll transfer punch these. I'll clamp it down. I'll transfer punch these once I got it centered up, and then we'll drill and tap those for some fasteners. And then on the bottom, we're going to drill and tap a pattern in our round plate. And then the bottom plate needs a little bit of work. It's got a hole that I want to patch. And okay, so let me get some tools out, and then we'll do this. Okay. All right. So this is a little hard to set up on the drill press or even the milling machine. So we're probably going to use the mag drill on the steel table here. Is what we're going to do. So let's. I guess we'll get set up to do that, and. Because we're probably going to do the same thing with the disc as well. All right. So I got everything I need now. So I'll use a pointer to start with here. So I had to find a piece of plate that was the same thickness. Because this offset wasn't enough to have this on the table and have this hanging over. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but let's get this. Get that in my mark. Okay, plugged in. Oop, it's vibrating. Okay, so that's in. Just using a stub drill here. Okay. So when you just a little tip when you're using a mag drill like this. You don't want to wail on the. You got a lot of mechanical advantage against the magnet, so you want to drill with kind of light pressure. So, just all you got to do is remember that it beats hand drilling by a long shot, and so don't get greedy and try to push too hard and go too fast. You're always going to beat the hand driller. So, okay, a couple more, and then we'll tap these. All right. What do you think? Think my little Makita 18 volt is going to be able to do this? power tap. Are we taking bets? Okay, there it is. 18 volt. Okay, there's my hole. So I'm going to use a guide. Like so. This is where you need an extra set of hands. Alright, let's take that out of there. Alright, let's get it clamped first and then get it lined up. Actually, the force of the okay, everybody's still there. No cuts. Okay, here we go. Oh, baby. Power tap, half 13. How do you like that? Beats hand tapping any day of the week, right? Okay. One more and then we'll mount, well actually we can't mount the vise yet, so. Alright, so now what we want to do, we want to put a center point in this, and I forgot to grab my center head, which, there. So we want to work off of the center of what's there. So for some of you folks, you may have seen one of these before, and these are centering heads, right? And you know, when it sits on a nice V, or excuse me, when it sits on a circle, it finds the center, and then on a you know, something like this that's burned, I just do a couple of extra just to kind of average out what's there, you know, and any Humpty Dumpties and stuff like that. And then what you end up with in the middle is is what we used to call in navigation, you know, celestial navigation, we call it a cocked hat, which is although that's all pretty good there, which is a convergence of several lines, right? And you were always very suspicious if those lines crossed perfectly on a map. And the reason being is there's always little tiny errors that creep in, you know, the time that you took the shot and your sight reduction and all that stuff. So there was always, you expected, I'm just going to put a little baby dot there in the center. You always expected some error. Okay, so now what I want to do is measure this pattern here, and because we're and honestly, you know, this always looks like a good idea, but when you're matching up to it doesn't really give you any extra latitude. It looks like it does, but it doesn't. So if you've ever played around with trying to mount stuff to patterns like this, it doesn't buy you much. So anyhow, let's do this here. What I want is I want the center to center on this, right? So what I'm going to do is measure from one extreme end of the slot to the other extreme end. Okay, since the slots are the same. It should give me the center to center distance, right? So I'm seeing 8 1/8. So then I'm just going to do a bozo check. Hold that in the center. Yeah, it looks okay. So 8 1/8 is our center distance. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle here very carefully with my handy dandy dividers that hold a Sharpie, like that. It helps if you loosen up the clamp there, Mr. Bozo. Actually, you know what? I would like a fresh Sharpie. Okay, so what I say, 8 1/8. So what's half of that? I know you guys are screaming at the. So we're going to burn 1 inch. That way the divider tip sits in there, right? 8 1/8, so 4 1/16, right? Let's flip it over here. 4 1/16, and then I'm going to just draw a little line. Okay, that looks pretty good on my rule to make sure that it cuts through the alright, and then we're going to put a nice little circle around here. It looks small, doesn't it? Oh, you know, forgot to see? Use your senses. I said, God, that looks small, and I was right, it was. So I forgot that I burned 1 inch, right? Okay. That's a mini bozo, by the way. Alright, so this should be a little bigger. Yeah, that looks better. And then the final bozo check is check what you did. 8 1/8. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Should be. Did it twice, right? The perils of talking and thinking at the same time. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to use this again. And we know this pattern is 90 degrees. It's turned 90 degrees. I'm going to use the fine side. So, okay, so now we got a couple of marks. So we got 2 holes of our pattern now. So now you're wondering, how do you do a nice job and get it 90 degrees from there? Well, I'm going to show you. Let's get a center pop in there. Okay. So we can use our dividers again, which is a clever way of doing it. So let's do that. And what the operation that we're doing is, and it's called erecting a line. Okay, and now the setting of the dividers is arbitrary. It doesn't matter as long as it's the same. So I've opened it up quite a bit because what I want is I want a longer throw, right? So I'm going to strike a line. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to strike a line, and I'm going to come back since I need a little more line there, okay? And that little intersection right there, if you draw a line between that point and that's exactly 90 degrees to that other pattern, okay? Pretty accurately, and the farther you go out, the better. And now if you use a scribe, you can get real accurate. I got to get my Sharpie out of there. And you can get more accurate, but for our purposes, this will be fine. So I'll flip that over. So what I want to do is rotate this around until it crosses my, hopefully you can see all that. Yeah, you can see all that. Ooh, sorry, my battery light's flashing. Okay. Let me put a new battery in that camera. All right, fresh battery now. And then what I like to do is I pick my point, and then I bring my square up to the point, like that. Oops, and then move it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, and then we're going to strike a line across the circle that we know is 8 1/8. Okay, and now we got a nice pattern that's 90 degrees. So let's center punch that before my vision changes and I can't see it anymore. Let's give it a good swat there. Okay, and same here on that one. And then what are we gonna do for the final bozo check since things happen? First off, we're going to circle these. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the super bozo check and put these up there and see if it makes sense. Okay, there's one, there's two. And I can't see down the hole. Okay. 3. A piece of scale fell in the hole, and I was like, what the heck? And okay. Yeah, this looks good. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And so we're going to drill and tap this 1-inch plate. Okay, and then, ow, son of a gun. That hurt. And then what we're going to do is we're going to clean this up. We're going to weld that up and blend it so that we don't have a big fish hook there. So. So are we taking bets on whether my Makita drill with, let's see here, two bars on the battery can tap 1-inch. So that other one that I just did a little while ago was 3/4 steel. Let's get that nice and tight. This one's 1-inch. So are we taking bets? I don't know. Oops, I need my clamp. Because what I want is I want to clamp the guide down. So this is part of the secret here, I will tell you, is clamping the guide down, because when you let's make sure that's all lined up and tighten that up, because when you're straight you have to tap less material, and the tap is loaded up evenly. Okay, so that is one of the secrets. So okay, here we go. Look at that, cream cheese. Now a fresh battery would probably help, but I'm going to keep going till it cacks, and let's see how far we get here. If we can get 4 holes out of it. So I'm curious if any Milwaukee folks out there, I mean the M28s are you know, the fuel guys. Those are pretty good tools. So okay, Liquid Love number 2. Yeah. I got to spin this around. We'll do a couple more. All right, last hole. Same battery. 2 bars still. Okay. So this is a spiral point gun tap. So it's specifically engineered to do through holes, okay, and or holes that have a lot of extra drill depth. Okay, that's the other caveat. You can't use these in blind holes, and what it does is it pushes all the chips out in front of it, and so instead of trying to push the chips back up, which uses extra energy and creates friction, it pushes it ahead. So these are really low pressure cutting taps. So you want to quit breaking taps on through holes. Get spiral point gun taps, they're called. And now this particular one is an oddball because it's got a long shank on it, but it is kind of my preferred tap, preferred cut tap, and for this kind of stuff, in particular through holes. And I use them on blind holes, but only when there's plenty of extra drill depth for enough room for the chips. Now you see that's a pretty large volume of chips. So if we were trying to tap a blind hole 1 inch deep in steel, you would want another inch at least of hole, if not more, to clear the chips, right? So to get away with this, I guess, is what I'm saying. So it's nice because so many times I see people they bust out the manual tap wrench for this kind of stuff, and you saw how quick that was. I mean, come on, it's like I don't want to sit there all day tapping holes, right? I mean, sure, I love using my my tap wrenches and stuff like that, but if you're working for money, unlike me, then time is money. Okay, let's weld this up, and then we'll sandblast this, and we'll paint it, and we're done. So what I want to do here is just take off some of that that scale from the plasma cut or whatever cutting method is used. All right, let's see how we did here. Let's do a trial fit up. See how it goes here. I see holes. Good start. So what I want to test right now is so this is what I mean. So we're in the middle of the slot, right? And those slots are at 45 degrees. So your quick intuition, you look at it, you go, oh wow, that gives me extra room to work with. Well, it really doesn't. It really only gives you whatever extra width of the slot is. Okay, in this case it's about a 1/16 oversized. So that's all the wiggle that we get. Okay, we don't really get other than a 1/16 in any particular direction. It doesn't behave the same way as an oversized hole does, right? So it looks clever initially, yeah, potentially it can cover more than one bolt pattern, okay, but you don't get extra room, okay, so don't fool yourself into thinking you get extra room. Okay, well now I got to lift this stupid thing onto the ground here. Okay, well, I'll be right back. Alright, we'll tighten those up in a minute. And I think this is the way this goes. That. I like this is a good color combination. I think it has some significance on the color wheel. Okay, now this is what I want to test here. Yeah. So it's heavy, okay, but it's controllable. That's what I care about, right? So maybe what I should have done also, while I had the chance, is in case I want to bolt it to the floor, is add a couple of holes to bolt it to the floor. So maybe I'll do that, but for the most part, this is done right now. She can try it and try the height. So actually, I want to try these these special bolts. So let's get some tools. We'll snug those up and see if Jason is true to his word, and there's no wiggle when those are. Yeah, get all the dust off here. Huh? Thing's been sitting around for a while. Okay, let me get some tools and we'll test for wiggle. Oh yeah, I can already feel it. Yeah, I just pulled it up hard against that one wall. Like that. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Sweet. Yeah, now of course the machinist in me says, oh my God, it's not centered in the tube, right? But he can just shut up, and because it doesn't matter. What I care about is that there's no wiggle there. And it's easily adjustable. You know, I can raise this thing up. So when you, let's see, can you see the top of the vise there? Let me double check. So when you set a vise for the correct height, working height, generally this is kind of the measure here, kind of your elbow, something like that. And that's a good height for filing or sawing or chipping or whatever, right? And is when you stand there about, so this would be right for me. For my wife, that might be okay. She's taller than I am. No big surprise, right? Or she might need it a little lower, so we'll see. We'll see what she wants for what she's doing. And then we got Mr. Swivel. Mr. Swivel, anytime. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of swivel-based vices myself, right? And it seems like, although I do use this one on my welding bench in different attitudes, but that's kind of like for welding setup. But for bench vices, I generally like them fixed. I don't like the swivel base because when you're really reefing on something, they always move when you don't want them to move, right? So, you know, I'll admit every once in a while it's nice to be able to turn them. So anyway, that's about it for this video. I'm not going to bore you with painting, but Jason, thank you, sir, kind sir, for the vise stand. And if you guys want to build one for yourself, hook up with Jason from Fireball Tool, fireballtool.com, I'm pretty sure. And I'll put a link in the description to this vise stand. So, and it's a hell of a deal. I mean, you just can't poke any holes in it, and it's a screaming deal, and it's ready-made for a job like this, or a bench grinder, or a Beverly shear, or a Whitney punch, or I don't know what, a little anvil. Who knows? You know, who knows? Whatever you want to put on something like this, it's a great stand. So, okay, see you next time.